Now welcome back to the classic Sonic timeline, but before I carry on the story, I have one question. Have you watched part 1? Wrong answer. Now go back and watch part 1, and for those that have, let's continue the adventure. With Dr. Robotnik now defeated and the Death Egg now plummeting from orbit, it seems inevitable that Sonic would meet his demise. However, thanks to the power of the Chaos Emeralds, Sonic transforms into his super form and manages to escape the Death Egg.
Not bad, not bad.
Flying through the sky like a rocket, Sonic eventually reunites with Tails, piloting the Tornado. And together they begin their journey back to South Island for a well-earned rest. But before they reach South Island, a massive explosion is heard throughout the skies of Mobius.
Oh my.
Sonic and Tails search the horizon looking for the crash site of the Death Egg, but bizarrely, the space station has vanished without a trace.
Great Scott.
Then for a moment the sky turns dark, with the sun being blocked out by a mysterious floating island, which bizarrely begins to descend down to Mobius. And it's from here that Sonic and Tails witness smoke coming off this mysterious island of the sky. Unknown to Sonic and Tails, Dr. Robotnik had survived the crash landing of the Death Egg, and upon his emergence from the rubble, the evil genius comes face to face with Knuckles, the guardian of the Master Emerald.
Oh crap.
Immediately the Echidna goes on the offensive. However, Dr. Robotnik manages to convince Knuckles that Sonic and Tails are in fact after the power of the Master Emerald and that he himself is the protector of Mobius, but he needs the Chaos Emeralds to continue his mission of peace. Now the Master Emerald is the very reason as to why the floating island exists, and seemingly Knuckles is convinced that Dr. Robotnik is telling the truth, and so decides to run off to reclaim the Chaos Emeralds, leaving the Mad Doctor to his own devices. Moments later, Sonic and Tails are seen flying towards the floating island, but Sonic soon transforms into his super form and flies through the forest at supersonic speeds. However, he's abruptly stopped by Knuckles, who literally punches the Chaos Emeralds out of his possession. Eventually, Tails catches up with Sonic, and together they begin their exploration of the floating island, encountering badniks that look very familiar. Could these be the work of Dr. Robotnik? Soon their question would be answered, and from here, Sonic and Tails would travel from zone to zone like many times before, in the pursuit of Dr. Robotnik. And on this adventure, they would encounter Knuckles many times. While Knuckles, Sonic and Tails have been at loggerheads with one another, Dr. Robotnik has been repairing the Death Egg, in hopes of relaunching it back into orbit. Throughout their journey, Sonic and Tails managed to recover the stolen Chaos Emeralds, and eventually reached Launch Base Zone, noticing that the Death Egg is being rebuilt in the distance. Racing against time, the dynamic duo managed to commandeer a flying machine, and close in on the Death Egg, with Knuckles appearing before them. But before the Echidna can attack, the ground suddenly begins to shake. The Death Egg has started its relaunch sequence and is slowly ascending into the sky, but luckily Sonic manages to board the space station in the nick of time. However, Dr. Robotnik is there, ready and waiting. Sonic and Dr. Robotnik begin to fight against one another on a tiny platform, with the Death Egg rising higher and higher into the sky. But being the champion of Mobius, Sonic manages to best Dr. Robotnik, and with his defeat, the Death Egg once again begins to fall from the sky. Like before, this space station of destruction crash lands back on the floating island, but this time in Lava Reef Zone. And knowing full well that the Doctor would somehow survive, Sonic decides to return to the mysterious island of the skies. Finding himself in Mushroom Hill Zone, Sonic proceeds to overcome the dangers found within. Eventually, Sonic stumbles across Dr. Robotnik, and what follows is yet another confrontation between the pair, with the Doctor being defeated easily. From here, a flying fortress appears, with Dr. Robotnik boarding an attempt to outrun Sonic. This flying machine of the skies is filled with many dangers and enemies, but through sheer determination, Sonic battles his way through, before escaping and eventually arriving in Lava Reef Zone. This volcanic and highly deadly place is the crash site of the Death Egg, which Sonic can see in the distance, looming over him as if watching his every move.
Always watching.
Sonic uses all his skills to avoid the hot molten lava before uncovering a mysterious door. Sonic enters the chamber of the Master Emerald and immediately is attacked by Knuckles. This whole time when Sonic and Knuckles were fighting one another, the Master Emerald has been left unguarded, which of course has given Dr. Robotnik the perfect opportunity to steal this powerful gem. Angered about being tricked, Knuckles tries with all his might to stop Dr. Robotnik. But sadly his efforts are in vain and the crazed genius escapes with the Master Emerald. Knowing that the magical gem can be used to relaunch the Death Egg into orbit, Knuckles calls a truce with Sonic and leads the way to the Sky Sanctuary. Still weak from the assault from Dr. Robotnik, Knuckles can only proceed so far and leaves the rest up to the hero Mobius. Venturing further and further into the sky, Sonic is hot on the heels of Dr. Robotnik. But before he can have that final confrontation, a new robotic foe appears, ready to take down the world's fastest hedgehog. What follows is an epic battle in the sky above Mobius, but fortune favours the blue blur, with Sonic emerging victorious. However, this victory is short-lived, when the Sky Sanctuary itself begins to collapse, leaving Sonic to run at the speed of sound to the tallest tower of this mystical palace. Sonic has two choices: fall to his immediate death, or use his supersonic speed to propel himself onto the Death Egg.
Nice.
The space station is filled with the deadliest enemies and the most dangerous traps that Sonic has not yet encountered. But luckily through a will of iron, Sonic overcomes each and every danger thrown his way. And from here, the final showdown between Sonic and Dr. Robotnik begins, with the mad scientist entering his most fearsome death machine ever, which ultimately meets its fate at the hands of the blue blur. However, Dr. Robotnik isn't quite ready to relinquish the power of the Master Emerald just yet, and escapes into the orbit of Mobius with the magical gem. With the power of the 7 Chaos Emeralds, Sonic transforms and immediately pursues Dr. Robotnik, destroying his flying machine and reclaiming the Master Emerald. But bizarrely, a unique energy signature is now emanating from the floating island. And curious to find out what this source of power actually is, Sonic returns back to the home of Knuckles.
Neat.
Like before, Sonic flies along the shoreline of the floating island. However, this time the blue blur witnesses 5 egg robos excavating the source of the energy signature. A magical gemstone known as the Phantom Ruby is soon uncovered and mysteriously transforms the egg robos into the hard-boiled heavies.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
It seems that the hard-boiled heavies are going to take the Phantom Ruby back to Dr. Robotnik, which of course means trouble.
You don't say.
But luckily this time around, Sonic has the support of Tails and Knuckles, as well as the help of 2 friends not seen in a long time. Together, all the allies of Sonic chase the hard-boiled heavies as well as Dr. Robotnik through many different zones, dealing with some of the deadliest enemies Sonic and his friends would ever encounter. Soon though, they discover that the mad scientist has harnessed the power of the Phantom Ruby to retake control over Little Planet. Sonic returns back to Little Planet and traverses undiscovered zones, battling the hard-boiled heavies as well as Dr. Robotnik himself. But when Sonic defeats the mad scientist, they find themselves being transported to a bizarre dimension, thanks to the power of the Phantom Ruby. Within this void between realities, the leader of the hard-boiled heavies immediately grabs the magical gemstone, but Dr. Robotnik clashes with the Heavy King. Both of them want the Phantom Ruby for themselves, but Sonic concludes that neither of them should harness the power of this troublesome stone. Dr. Robotnik, the Heavy King and Sonic himself enter a battle of epic proportions, with a gruesome twosome ganging up on the blue blur. But after a long and very tiring battle, Sonic emerges victorious, as if reacting to the power of the Chaos Emeralds. Suddenly, a wormhole appears from out of nowhere, engulfing Sonic, and as quickly as it appeared, the wormhole vanishes. It seems that the blue blur himself has disappeared from existence, but unknown to his friends, Sonic is very much alive and going on his own adventures, even encountering a modern version of himself, but from a different timeline.
What?
I know, my brain hurts too, but eventually classic Sonic would return to his own timeline, but that's for a whole different story.
Oh, come on!
Anyway, come back next time for another action-packed adventure. But who exactly is this Black Hedgehog? Thank you so much for watching, and see you next game.